Welcome, everybody, to the Rabbit Hole Vibrations podcast with Holly and Steve, where we can answer all of your life questions, guaranteed, or your money back. Holly, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. By the way, guys, we probably can't. So just
But
being
we'll
honest
try.
with you.
We'll try.
We'll
We'll
try.
try.
Sure. I mean, if you have a life question, but in no way are either of us certified for anything. So don't blame us if we don't come up with the right answer. But we're intelligent people. We'll do our best. But what are we talking tonight about, Holly?
We are talking about remote viewing. And let me tell you what a rabbit hole this has been for me this week. I probably put in the time of a full-time job because I got into this and started watching and reading, and I've been so immersed in it all week that it's insane. But I did learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Do you know much about
so
remote viewing and
I
astral
don't.
projecting and any of that?
No.
Well, when I first heard about it, I thought it was the same as astral projecting, which it is not, because with astral projecting, and I don't even know that I believe in that, to be honest, but astral projecting is an out of body experience, where remote viewing is basically psychic clairvoyance.
Okay.
You're not leaving your body.
So do
And
you want to try and give a best stab at your definition of psychic clairvoyance? Just because clearly we could have a listener or two that is like, wait, what?
well, everybody knows what a psychic is. Someone
Mm-hmm.
that can
Potentially.
pull information, whatever. It's basically like psychics or clairvoyants that are able to see things that are not obviously within their field of vision and tell you things about yourself or your past or whatever.
Like a fortune teller.
Yeah, I guess so. But the
I mean, we
government
could just use the
basically,
crystal ball as a metaphoric joke.
right, the
Okay.
government basically took that because they didn't want to be laughed at, and when they saw that this was something that was actually viable to do, they changed the name of it. So people weren't laughing at them, kind of like they did with the UFOs and the UAPs. It's another government. We're going to change the name of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, this goes clear back to 1952.
It's oddly the 50s seemed to be a decade that seemed like, if you look in history, it seems somewhat boring. Especially it comes after the Great Depression, World War II's over, all this, that, and the other, and the 50s didn't seem to be all that. But like in this realm, it seems like when a lot happened and when the government decided we can't tell the people stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the first time that somebody actually spoke at the Pentagon about ESP and
Okay.
psychological warfare. So that's kind of what kicked it off. And then just some different things happened over the years. In 61, there was a brief investigation of psychic phenomenon by the CIA under the label Project Ultra. And then in 69, the CIA became concerned because they heard that the Soviets were using psychic phenomenon and spying on us and finding out our secrets. And at first they kind of laughed, and then they're like, but wait, they actually know this stuff and they're right. So there's got to be something to this. So that's when we started looking into it and figured out, hey, this is something that works. So
That's weird. When I'm it sucks that I don't have this exact date in front of me, but when was the height of Vietnam?
you know what? I don't know that either.
I mean, somewhere around 69, because that was Summer of Love, and I remember when people would come back, they were being spit on and stuff. And so I know there was a disconnect of major proportions because people were hating our soldiers coming back, and they didn't do anything except for, at that point they would put people in jail for not going. If you got the call for duty, like, you had to go, you couldn't skip. That was a different time. But
Right.
but all these people who got the orders that they had to go, and then they came back and they'd be spit on, and there was just such a disconnect. But I know that during that time that some of what you're talking about, there was a big, and this is now public too. Again, another public thing, that this was a huge time when the I don't know if it was just the army or what it was, which armed forces it was. I know it was the army though, was experimenting with soldiers and LSD to see if there was any kind of anything there, kind of
Mhm. I
along the lines
do
you're
remember.
talking about.
Yeah, I do remember hearing something about that as well.
Like literally, like just taking soldiers out and like having them in rooms for days and putting them on this stuff. And I mean, to me, I guess I'm pointing it out because it shows like how just crazy the government can be. Like, hey, this now I'm thinking about this, this clairvoyance thing and psychic phenomenon, and how did the Soviets know this? And maybe let's, hey, some guy had a stupid idea. Let's put some army guys into a room and feed them LSD and see if they can figure it out. Okay, like
Well, and it's
this is
funny.
what I know that this isn't the story. I'm just picturing this. This is how stupid decisions are made.
It's funny that you bring up Vietnam because they mentioned in several of these documentaries that I watched that in the beginning they were pulling some of the army guys from Vietnam who were somehow able to keep the death tolls down in their troops because they just somehow knew where the mines were and things like that and were able to avoid those situations. So they pulled them thinking, okay, well, they must have some psychic ability because, these guys were always avoiding this stuff. So that's interesting.
So like you're saying the ones that didn't die, because all of us that have watched Vietnam things, it's like, so many groups of people died, and it's not a laughing matter. I'm just pointing it out, but it's like I'm just thinking like a couple guys got lucky and they're like, come with
Well, and
us.
I think
Like,
these
dude.
guys were like more consistent on like always avoiding. You know what I mean? You know how some people
Yeah,
are just
sure,
lucky,
sure.
and some people always find $100 bill on the ground, and nobody, it's weird.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, let's get I just got down another rabbit hole there, but okay. Let's go back to this because I'm interested.
so anyway, so in '72, Russell Targ and Harold Putnoff began a research effort that they were doing through Stanford Research Institute, and they found some people that they felt could produce results. And it kind of went on from there. But when you're remote viewing, it's not basically like you're sitting there looking at a crystal ball, but they would have a target in an envelope, say, or a picture in an envelope of a place, and nobody else knew what was in this envelope except the one person that put it in there. And the remote viewer was able to, through whatever process they do, able to, even though they're not leaving their body, their mind, I guess, is in a way, and they can describe everything down to a T, and they are able to draw it out in some fashion. And they would never say like it's a car. They would say it's a large metal object with four cylinder, round things on it that have rubber. They avoid using certain terms because they don't want to like qualify something. So they would never say, "Oh, it's the New York Empire State Building." It's a tall metal shape with, that's how they would describe it. It's very, very different than how
To
normal
speak to
psychic
the,
would
to I
describe.
just thought of a really good pop reference for clairvoyant, because most people have probably seen this. The original Ghostbusters with Bill Murray and stuff.
Right.
None of these spin-offs. The original one with Harold Ramis and Bill Murphy and um, all these, if you remember in the beginning, they were doing these clairvoyance tests where they were holding up a card, like in the very beginning of the movie, before they're Ghostbusters. They're like funded by a university and they're sitting there holding up these cards, and like Rick Moranis is one of the test subjects, and then there's a really good looking woman next to him, and they're both hooked up to these machines that give shocks, and Bill Murray's running running it, and he's like, "What do you see?" And she keeps getting everyone wrong, and he's getting them right, and he keeps giving him the shocks.
Oh god, I don't remember that, but I'll
But
take your word
he's
for
in the, he's like, I don't know, it's a bunch of wiggly lines, and he's like, I'm sorry, it's just, and then you just see these wiggly lines.
it. Oh, well, he
So
was
I
right.
guess when you said that, it kind of made me think, okay, that's kind of, I'm not talking about like ink blots. I'm talking about there used to be these cards that were like clairvoyance test.
Right. Well, I don't know. And they actually did find out that, because there was one point where they were trying to recruit psychics, but then they found out that they were actually worse at this than if they recruited Joe Schmo from the army and trained him how to do this. So it's not that you had to have a psychic ability. They say that anybody can learn how to do this. And there's an institute called the Monroe Institute that's like the big place now for remote viewing. And the guys that were the big wigs that did all of the remote viewing and were very successful at it back in the day now teach these classes. You can actually go to the Monroe Institute and sign up and do, they have where you can go and do a like a residential thing where you're there for like 5 to 7 days. Let me see here what this is. I've got it written down here.
I was gonna
Yes,
say we should go do that.
it's 5 days, 6 nights. It's on the Virginia campus. It's $2,600 basically. Double occupancy rooms, free Wi-Fi, meals, shuttle service, pool, lake, massage, blah blah blah. Anyway, so then they had all the dates down there, and they have one in June, one in November, one in December, and those are already full. And then the
But what
February
are
of
they? So
2025
what are
is
the
open.
bullet points on what they pitch you? Like, here's what you're gonna learn.
Well, you learn the techniques on how to do this. So, because there's also other things that they use this for besides the military at this point. One of the guys, oh gosh, now his name just fell out of my head. He has a nonprofit that helps find missing children.
Okay.
And so that's one thing that they have been very helpful in. I mean, all the different agencies, law enforcement uses it. There's all kinds of different people that use it. But obviously, the CIA back in the day was the main agency that used it.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the Monroe Institute also does a virtual remote viewing thing that you can do for $775. It's 2.5 days. So if you can't like go and be in that one, but I think it'd be awesome to go to one of these and try to learn how to do this. But
Still to this day, like people, like everybody, you watch, either know the story, maybe you've heard podcasts, maybe you've seen the movie on Snowden. Everybody thinks, well, we've just got so many government agencies now. The NSA is the one. That's the one that has top ranking. No, no, no. Still to this day, the scariest government agency is the CIA. I mean,
oh,
I don't think anybody debate that. I'm just pointing it out because yes, all these new scary places pop up, and yes, the NSA has some really scary tools, but the CIA has like and it's not, I don't even think they're within their jurisdiction, but they have worldwide reach. Like they can touch you in any country at any point. Like, I
right,
don't know. That's always been pretty scary to me that the CIA operates without any real, like, here's what we do at the CIA. It's like, what do you do? Don't worry about it. It's always been like, it's still to this day it is.
right. Oh yeah, I definitely I agree.
It's
I
just
agree.
that one government agency that doesn't even lie about it. It's like, dude, don't ask. Okay. That doesn't seem
Right.
right, but all right. you know.
Well, I'm sure you heard the term Stargate, which was the name
Oh
of
yeah.
that was the final name of the remote viewing program, because it
Okay.
actually went through several names, but Stargate was the last one, and they say that they ended it in '95. They had a 4-panel group that came in and supposedly did this study on it and said, oh, it really hasn't been that helpful and blah blah blah, and they ended up closing Stargate. Well, come to find out that they had given them basically all of the bunk stuff. Well, here's everything that didn't work. And then they didn't give him any of the good ones. They didn't give him all the ones that did work. So that was kind of why it got shut down. And that was on purpose. And
So
when I
wait,
say
when you
it got
say
shut down,
did
that's,
work or didn't work, what do we talk? What do we
I
what?
mean, like if they give them a target and they say, hey, we need to know what's going on inside this big building.
Okay.
And if they come back and they're able to give them information that actually turns out to be correct, then that was right. That was correct. Then if they come back and they say, oh, Mickey and Minnie Mouse were in there dancing around, and obviously that's not correct, then that's bunk, stupid stuff that doesn't, it's wrong. So that's
Okay.
what I'm saying. They gave them all the stuff that they didn't hit on instead of all the stuff they did hit on. And actually, when they were testing the people to be in this program, they tested 3,000 troops to get down to 6 people.
But why? Wait, I'm confused. Why would they do that?
Because this was in the very beginning when they were starting the program, and they had to find 6 people that they felt were trainable or, had some kind of abilities or something that could be successful in this program. And the
Okay,
people that they picked were successful, like Joe McMonagle. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
McMonagle. He is the Stephen Greer is to aliens. Joe
Hmm.
McGonigal is the remote viewer, Stephen Greer.
Okay.
He
I'm
actually
still
got
trying. I'm just still trying to take in remote viewing. I'm still trying to fully grasp it, but I'm sure as we keep going, because I'm okay.
he was
Um,
able to, when I said show us what's in this big building, that was actually one of the things that he did. They actually did ask him to say, hey, the Soviets have this big building, we don't know what they're doing in there. And so he did a remote viewing session and came back and said that they were constructing a new type of submarine that had double hulls and was a half a gan larger than any submarine that existed currently, and had all of these special things that it could do. And so he sent this report up the chain. And and he also said that they were going to launch in 120 days. So he sent this up there, and the head guy at the CIA looks at it and he writes back, "This is fantasy," and sends it back. 114 days later, so the Soviets launched the exact submarine he had described down to a T.
and when was this again?
That was, gosh, what year was that?
I mean, I'm
Oh,
just
I got
curious. Is
it.
it one of the nuclear subs?
I've got the name of it written down. Let me see. Oh, here it is.
I'm
It was
guessing
called
it is
the
if it's one of the largest.
TK-089 was the name of the submarine.
Okay.
It would have been prior to 95 because they were shut down in 95. I can't remember, but I mean, they talk about any documentary that has Joe in it. We'll talk about that because that was one of the big ones. And then after this launched and everything he said was correct, it was Robert Gates at the CIA. That was the guy that he sent it to. And Robert Gates said, "Oh, it was a lucky guess." Really?
What? For real?
Yeah. And it was like so detailed that like there was no way. But actually, Joe McMonagle, I have such a hard time saying his last name. He won the Legion of Merit Award, which is the second highest non-combative award that the government gives for all of his work with remote viewing because he was able to find out so much information.
Okay.
And they worked on the Patty Hearst kidnapping. The remote viewer told the law enforcement that it was not a typical kidnapping, that it was not about money, but it was politically motivated. They told them where to find the car that she was kidnapped in, and they told them where she was being held, the layout of the apartment, and that she was being held in a closet. I mean, everything they said was exactly right. So,
Weird.
yeah, it's they're psychic spies.
Right, but what
That's
one thing I'm really confused on is like, okay, so how do you narrow it down to who these are? I mean, I get it, but like I've seen our government operate. They're not that smart. Like, how are we getting these people, and how do you train somebody that doesn't know this? Or
well,
I mean,
that's why we could
I'm sure
go.
you don't have that answer either. I'm it makes me
Right.
really curious because like what how like what like me, what you can train me how to be psychic? I mean, because that's
Apparently.
really weird. Because then why wouldn't you just mass train people?
I know. I know. Well, and they kind of are because the guy that runs the Missing Children Foundation, he said, we have all of these missing children, but we don't have enough people to be able to find all of them that we can, so he would love it if more people were doing that kind of a thing. But
Right. Yeah. 100%.
they also helped locate some of the Iran hostages.
Oh, thank you, Mandy. Mandy gave us a coffee cup. I'm not sure. I think that has a value to us. So thank you. Appreciate you. I'm guessing it's Mandy. It's three M's Andy. Mandy. So,
He wants to make sure
um,
you don't call her Candy. It's
yeah.
Mandy.
So, but thank you very much. I appreciate we both appreciate that very much. Um,
But just to go back to what I was talking about when we first started with astral projecting and that being an out of body experience, and people saying that they can meditate and leave their bodies and end up, over at Susie Q's house, doing whatever. Do you believe that's true? That people that
are you talking
happen?
about shape shifting?
No, I'm talking about where you're meditating and you actually
Oh,
leave
you
your
can
body.
levitate out.
No, yeah, well, your spirit
Yeah,
basically,
yeah, yeah.
and then you're over wherever you decide that
You
you're
know,
astral projecting to.
I've seen things where I think I don't know if my answer's that great, but here it is. Like, because I've seen things where the only way I think I even at all believe it is when you hear that story where the rest of it makes sense and somebody's levitating only outside of themselves, looking at themselves. I don't believe you can levitate other places. And like I've heard about this like out of body type experience, levitating, and it uses the word levitate too, so it's not just out of body, but levitate and see yourself like when you're sleeping or something.
Well,
And
I
it
mean,
always
I believe it when it comes to near death experiences because that's what happens at death. But just to okay, well, it's a Tuesday night, so I'm going to meditate and astral project over to Paris or wherever I decide to. I don't know. I find that really hard to believe, but there is evidence out there.
see, but there you go. If that's the
That's
case,
what throws me,
then
and I'm kind
teach
of like,
me so that Holly and I can go to Paris on a Friday.
well, they say that they
You know,
can
like
because
I'm not even trying to use it for bad. I just want to go on vacation
right. But
for
they
free.
say that people that have astral projected have been actually photographed in two locations at once. How can that be?
Yeah, I
And
don't know that I buy that. I mean, first of all, now, like, I know you're reading things from probably a little prior, and this goes back, but like nowadays, especially, now what?
right. Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
because now you can
you saw the software I
manipulate.
sent you
Sure, sure.
about another video, unrelated to anything we're talking about here tonight, but where I changed our voices into Spanish. That's scary. That
Yeah.
piece of software
That was
alone
pretty
was
cool, though.
scary. But it's pretty scary because it actually makes your mouth move to 72 different languages.
Wow.
It transform your mouth movement, and if you didn't notice, it matches your voice.
It did. It did.
So if you go, if I didn't know if I told you that, but if you go back and listen, it actually it matches your voice. And let me look, see if I have it handy. I'll tell you guys that it's called Zen something, maybe Zengen.
Yeah, I did. I looked at that website and it does match the voice. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, really amazing. Oh, it's called
Oh,
it's HEYGEN.com. I'm gonna put it in the chat, you guys, because if you are watching or come in tonight, um, check this out because it's scary, but it's cool. It's not gonna scare you, but it's cool.
right. But
Because
basically, if you've made a video in English and you need that translated as Spanish because you're going to put it somewhere where
yes.
somebody that only speaks Spanish needs to hear it, it changes,
Right.
keeping
So
your voice and changes your
every
lips and
other
everything.
AI generator that is available to the public anyway that I know of, and I know of a bunch, do the word translation, and I even know of a couple apps that try and do voice match, but this is the only one that does a mouth change. Because if you've noticed, a lot of the ones will do a translate to Spanish that's solid, but it looks like a bad Godzilla movie.
Right.
You
I mean,
know,
even
like
all the
the
movies
mouth
on
doesn't,
TV.
yeah, they're not changing anything on the video,
Mm-mm.
just the just the language, and that isn't as impressive. People don't want to watch stuff like that. People, I mean, I'm telling you, the website I just put in there, you'll think I'm speaking that way,
Oh,
or that
100%.
if you like, whoever uses this website, he for the podcast listeners who don't catch this live, heygen.com. If you check that out, it basically, you can do one, I think it's 3 minutes for free or something. After that, you got to buy some credits or something, but you can do 3 credits for free. A credit is a minute, so you can do like a video, record it, and you can translate it to one of 72 languages.
Everyone should try that just to see how
I think so
amazing
too.
and freaky that it is, because they will be amazed.
And soon it won't be free. They won't even have a free trial, because this one is I got turned on to this by a friend, and it's leaps and bounds above what other companies have out there for the public.
Right. I can't believe the TV people don't use it. I was just watching something today that was translated and dubbed over in English. And of course, their mouths don't match at all.
Right, and that makes people not care so much. You don't engage at all with it.
Well, I just have to not watch. Actually, the show I watched today was really good, but it was like 6
But you know
episodes.
what I mean? Like,
But yeah,
people will
no, for
notice and be
sure.
like,
I mean, this
But I
one,
mean, like, if you watch
yeah.
the one I did, it's like, whoa, dude, his like he knows that. You'll literally think I know the language.
Oh,
No joke.
100%. 100%.
I mean, again, the voice matching is amazing. The mouth movement is like unreal. I mean, they've
Right.
got it down, and it doesn't look like something edited. It doesn't look like
Mm-mm.
it's. But anyway, we'll
No,
go
I
back
couldn't believe it
to
when you sent me that. That was,
yeah, yeah. It's a trip. It's a trip. But um, so now what? Now you can't do this? Are they denying that this goes on anymore? Are they saying they've ended this, or where is it at now?
yes, the program officially ended in 95. That's one of the conspiracies or controversies about this. Do we think this is still going on secretly? I say absolutely 100%.
I don't think I honestly believe 100% too, because I think it's scary when they say we're going to end this program, and it's a
Well, when
program where they're doing stuff like this, because then it's like,
right,
you mean you've gotten so far with it, you're scared to let us know what you're doing?
right. Because they have got so much information that is unbelievable that, what was it? Oh, hold on. I think it was Pat Price. Pat Price was one of the very early guys into this program. And he actually died in 1975. But the CIA had been working with SRI, is that right? SRI, which was Stanford Research Institute. And that's who they had been going through for all of their remote viewing. Well, so then they stopped working with SRI and started employing Pat Price privately. And 4 months later, Pat's dead. But he did have some heart issues, right? Well, it's rumored and thought by many in the RV community that the KGB killed him,
Yeah.
because he came out with, a minute here. He was doing daily spying for the CIA. The CIA had him go into the code room at the Soviet embassy, which you can't even, I guess, bug the code room because the walls are made of lead.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way that anybody can get any information out of there. And he was able to go in there and actually get their codes.
Okay.
So then he described an underwater sabotage training facility a few kilometers off the seacoast that apparently the Soviets had. And he passed that information on to the CIA Libyan operations desk. They located it. It was not one they'd known about previously. And a few days later, he was dead. So he was unattended in his room in Vegas, and they found him dead in there. He was taken to the emergency room, and another individual accompanied him into the emergency room, which nobody knows who that was or whatever. But this guy comes in with a briefcase and happened to just have Pat's EKG that he'd recently had done when he found out he had heart issues, showed that to the attending physician. The attending physician said, okay. So they took Pat's body away. He was cremated. And then they called his wife. She wasn't even notified until after they cremated him, supposedly. Very odd, don't you find?
Well, the only odd part is that somebody, or the only not odd part is somebody dies oddly in the story. Seems to be a trend with our stories. And
Well, then they said they have this nerve agent that causes suffocation and heart failure. And this ex KGB agent who had been involved with an assassination squad was interviewed on this TV. I don't even know what the TV program happened to be, but the reporter asked him, well, what did you do? How did you carry out assassinations? The KGB agent said, well, if we had somebody that was a target, we'd find out what their medical profile was. And then we would do something that would cause that medical condition to go south very quickly. And then it would just be assumed that it was a medical event. And that way we wouldn't be found out. You have to understand, this is back in the 70s. It's not like today where everything is found out. So the reporter asked him, he said, well, did you actually ever use that approach? And the KGB agent said, yeah, once on a psychic. He worked with the CIA. Hello.
but aren't you
Pat
concerned
Price.
that aren't you concerned that there's an answer too? Like, I'm always concerned when there's an answer. Like, wouldn't he have just not answered?
Well, he wasn't with the KGB. I guess he had defected from them or whatever. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I'm surprised, but
Thank
that's
you, Mandy. I had to say that. She said she sent a beer. Again, I don't know the value of these, but so I'm not trying to underplay anything at all. These are great. Thank you so much. Holly and I will have to get up to speed on what these mean. I mean, I know they have value, and we appreciate everything that you're doing. And she also put in there, I don't know if you saw it, Holly. She said what she is talking about is very real.
oh good. I'm glad that she knows about it. It is.
So
There was a
um,
movie that I watched, a documentary that I watched, if anybody wants to catch it, that told it was a great documentary. Um, Third Eye Spies. And I rented that off of Amazon Prime.
okay.
And it was very good. Also, there's the Sean, what's his name? On YouTube. He's got so many great interviews on this kind of stuff. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up again because now I don't know why his name just fell out of my head. Oh,
So
the
what
Sean
about other
Ryan show. The Sean
uh,
Ryan show. And he recently did a 6-hour interview with Joe McMoneagle. I have to say his
so
name.
what about other countries? Have other countries acknowledged, admitted to doing this, or is it just us saying other countries are doing it, so we're going to do it too?
Well, it started with Russia, I guess, and then
Right, but I
we
mean
jumped on. But I
outside of
think
that, like,
everybody, I think pretty much kind of everybody jumped on board after that.
okay.
So it really makes you wonder what's safe and what's not, you know?
Like what's safe is this podcast, because there will never be an end of rabbit holes to jump down.
That's for sure.
And especially as we get this format all lined up and stuff, because this is, I mean, like, literally, it's like when we're talking about this, 5 other stories pop out of it if we want.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
On everything, though, it's just like, damn, like, how can this even be possible? And how, because no matter what, I don't care, at least my view, I am wide-eyed trying to take it all in, but I know that they have gotten beyond good at covering up. So now it's really hard to find truth. However, there are some platforms. I mean, and sadly, it's odd to say this, but TikTok is a great resource for, I hate trying to give TikTok credit, but it is.
Yeah,
It's got some really, I mean, it has some horrible stuff too.
right. I
But
think there's a lot of misinformation on TikTok.
but there's a lot of good ones to be found too. And when you find a good one, check out the person and the channel too, because you might find that all of their stuff is that consistent and good. I don't
Right.
know. I'm just saying there's a lot of trash, sure, but there's a lot of solid stuff out there too.
Yeah. Well, with Pat Price's death too, there was also another theory that the CIA took him out. even though he'd only been working independently with them for 4 months. But apparently, he was giving some information to the head of his church about something, and you go to confession, and that's supposed to be private, right? So some people think that they took him out because of this information he was giving them, but others think that he just didn't understand what the limits were of what he could share with the head of his church.
Right.
So I I don't know about that, but right before he died, he had called several of his friends to say goodbye in very odd ways. He was getting ready to take a trip to go, I don't know if it was to CIA headquarters, or he was going to see some of the bigwigs, so like Russell Targ and the guys that were big and with the remote viewing. And so he called several of his friends to say goodbye in very odd ways. He bought $1 million life insurance policy and had his wife meet him at the airport so he could give it to her. So people say, well, maybe he was such a good psychic, maybe he was predicting his own death. And then a few years later, some Army remote viewers tasked themselves on Price's death later to try and find out what really happened to him. And they decided that he was still alive and working. So did he die? Did he not? I mean, there's so much with his death, even just with
He's
the
like
remote.
he like learned how to like mass transit it.
Who
He's like in
knows?
6 places at once. He's
No
like, I'm
kidding.
in France, I'm in Germany, I'm in Japan. There's
It's
a
just
picture of
crazy.
him on the same minute in all 6 countries. And he's kind of
Well,
like, suck it, guys. You can't find me. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like, again, I would wonder, how do we know that the two who, because, okay, maybe he is, but the two that said he's still alive, why do we know this? They wouldn't want us to know this.
this was back in 1975 when he died. So I mean, this
Okay.
is so many years ago now. I'm sure he's not alive now, but this that was
So you're
probably
basically you're saying
77.
that back in 1975, the news used to be a little more real.
He
Like,
died,
he used
yeah,
to
he died
tell
in
us stuff.
75, and like in 77, 78 was probably when those guys said that he was still alive. Well, but we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet, things didn't get out then like they do now. You
No,
know,
I'm actually meant that truthfully. Like, the news did do a better job. They weren't so corporate.
right,
Like, the news, they just didn't have as much to report on. Our technology wasn't that up to speed. But I don't know. I remember growing up that it wasn't like, man, I can't watch the news anymore. It's all wrong. It's all based on like it's based on the channel you watch.
right.
Like,
Yeah, back
you're
then
picking
you
your
could cross.
poison with the news these days.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people who say all big media is fake media. I don't believe that. I believe all big media has a corporation spin on each channel that's supposed to resonate with each of us, and that's what you watch.
Well,
But
we
I guess my
covered
point
this,
is, I mean, with a couple maybe exceptions, it's all the same story, just being spun in a way that you want to hear it.
but remember when we covered this, when we talked about the UFOs,
Yeah.
about how the government controls all of that.
Right. Well, also, I mean, like, look at like what is it that I'm thinking of? Not WGN, but the one out of Atlanta. Um
CNN.
no, TNT.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember when he owned TNT. He might even own CNN, or did, or whatever. But like, everything was under his control.
you're talking
And
about
like,
Turner?
that became that became like one of the first ones where it's like, damn, this guy decides if you hear something or not.
But they all have somebody that decides.
Well, they all have like teams, and like, well, we work with company A, so don't have a bad story on them. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. At this point, dude, I can't even watch any mainstream media because I'll go nuts. It's meant to just keep you engaged constantly with bullshit.
Yeah, I used to watch it like all. I mean, you'd walk in my house and headline news was on 24/7.
Yeah,
And then I got rid of cable and I went to all streaming services.
yeah.
And it's kind of better because I don't really watch and keep up with the news as much as I used to.
Well, and you can get it in so many other places too. Like, if you get I want to know what's going on with this. Like, you would know for you how to go find something. Okay, I
That
believe
I
in
believe,
this. It's not,
right?
yeah. So I mean, it's just easier to kind of sync up with that, But again, then comes in the scariness of the algorithm and how far. I mean, that's another government thing that we talk about in so many other ways, but we never relate it to the government. Like, Think about the government algorithms on us. Like, you know, like I
Yeah.
can't tell you. We've talked about this before. I'm going to say it real quick, but my iPhone spies on me. I don't even let it in my room anymore.
Oh, no, for sure it does. I know that that,
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
freaked
I've
you
already
out
known
that
that, but it's
time that
gotten
that happened with
so
you, but
but
it's
it's
just
gotten so bad. Like it's not just on the phone anymore, and it's not even like I have an iPad and an iPhone. My iPhone isn't sending a signal, or I mean, I'm sure it does. It's not just that I get on my iPad and it's got something that I was talking about only around my phone in the car running ads, but it's like I can go to our main TV where we have a Fire Stick, go to my Hulu, and I don't even have Hulu anywhere on any of my devices, and go to our Hulu and see the ads that I'm like, why am I seeing these just because I just talked about it?
really.
Yeah. And that's where it gets even scarier. It's like, dude, did you sell my data? And now they, and in that reel of time so that they know to do that because there's no communication going between these.
Well, there has to be.
Well, I mean, it could just be that, I mean, when you sign up for Hulu, you agree to let data sharing be possible. So the problem is you're by location services, you're allowing data sharing. Like what was the back in the day? I don't, they might even still do it, but like they used to pick a several families across the US that would have a black box in their house and it would record all the
Mhm.
things they watched,
The Nielsen ratings.
the Nielsen ratings. So, and that even might still be around. I don't know.
It is. It
Okay,
is.
so yeah, so I mean, but back in the day, this was high tech stuff. Like, wow, this is how
Right.
they're like learning stuff. Like, but they would like put this in there. I mean, like this is like a they would come install a box that was in no way spying on your conversation. It was literally just transmitting to the box what you were watching
But
and for
now
how
they
many
think that
hours.
and now they think that your TVs are spying on what's going on in your house. So it's like,
Right. I
how
mean,
far have we come?
right, the word, I mean the word alone, smart TV. Smart TV means it has the capability to listen to voice recognition. And I mean, that alone, that means that same as our phones. I know, like, I can tell you, iPhone's the worst. Like, yeah, okay, if I talk about something, like, here's my view. I don't know about yours, Holly, but I don't want to see iPhone say to me, like, oh, look at all these ads because we heard you talking about this. Like, even like, let's say I was talking about I want to go do a vacation somewhere, and maybe I really do. I don't want to see that come up on my iPhone. When I'm ready to look, I will, because that scares me.
Right. Well, next time you go on there, you're going to have vacation things about Paris now because we talked about it. So
Yeah.
be ready.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just scary. I mean, but I literally do. I leave them in I was thinking that a great idea for a for like people would be like a lead. I know you don't want lead around you, but maybe not lead, but some kind of lead box that you put your phones in at night,
But
where it literally can't microphone out of there.
all day long they're listening
I
to you.
know, but I'm
And
just
you
saying, like
Google
at night,
something.
why? Like, why should we let it learn our sleeping patterns? Or, what, who knows what the hell it's doing?
Right. I mean, all you gotta do is Google something one time and you're gonna see it everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I would say throw off your Google all the time. Like if you want to know about South America, we'll also look into Russia and Norway. So they're like, what's he? I don't get it.
You're
Make
just
it
gonna
not
get a
get
bunch of
it.
travel ads, probably.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if that's their point, is like, hey, let's market advertise these people based on what they're. Oh, thank you, ADMF. Appreciate you liking the show. Make sure you guys make Mandy ADF. Make sure to ADMF. Make sure to follow us. The podcast drops the next morning. And we're still, and I think every Tuesday night we'll be doing this. By next week, we will know the set time. We will be deciding that after the show tonight. So if we threw off anybody on schedule a little bit tonight, but um,
But
so
we can tell you it'll never be before 8 p.m., I'm sure. So,
8 p.m. and she's talking about Eastern.
yes,
So 8 p.m. Eastern. It'll probably. I think our thoughts are it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern or 10 p.m. Eastern. We're trying to figure that out.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there for sure, and then it drops every next morning. So, um, but yeah, thank you. And also, as we start to get our format down here, like we'll go through us thinking about it. And then if you guys want to join, you are always welcome to come on the lives and join us, co-host, speaking with us, whatever. Especially if you're feeling it. Otherwise, be definitely mentioning things in the chat. Um, love to even if you don't want to come on, love to see your comments.
For sure.
It's because I mean, like that might send us, we'll always answer questions the best we can. Well, thank you again, Mandy. We keep getting these. She gave us a love gift. She's given us a coffee,
I
a
know. I just saw
beer,
the
and a
pretty hearts fly
love,
up my screen.
and I don't know what that means. So, but thank you. We really appreciate you
Well, and
guys. So,
I just went down this rabbit hole this week. I didn't really know that much about it until I just spent my entire week looking at documentaries and all that. So I'm sure that there's people out there that know a lot more than me that, shoot, if you have information that to put in here, we'd love to hear it. So,
or even if you're listening to the podcast that drops tomorrow on this same channel, make sure that you leave it in the notes of the podcast, even if you didn't catch the live. Because if you have any information, or you're like, hey, I was interested in that, but you guys didn't talk about this or this, let us know, because we can come back to something down the road and say we've got more to add to this story now. If you guys can look, we're a community. We're trying to build this as a community. We're not the experts. We're just interested.
yeah, if you want more information on the remote viewing, though, I tell you, just go on to YouTube or any of those and put in remote viewing. You'll find
Mhm.
all kinds of stuff on there. That's what I
So
found so much, but
yeah, so I think that yeah, so let me I it's the way we do it is like we Holly picks a topic, then I pick a topic, then Holly does, then I do, kind of thing. And tonight I introduced the show and I'll walk us out. But the so we're trying to let you guys know on this what the next week's topic will be. So I actually had two, and since an ADMF, you can vote too, I guess, but we'll have to give Mandy the trophy tonight. She's been here the whole show, and so if she answers, it'll be up to, I'll let it be up to her, because I was at a
okay.
coin flip point on what the two would be. I have two ready for next week.
And
I
I don't
either
know what
wanted
either one of them are. So
No, you don't. So I either wanted to dive into Antarctica, or I wanted to go into Bob Lazar. So Mandy, if you are still listening, if you are still here, we will give you a minute. Antarctica or Bob Lazar. Otherwise, ADMF, you can be the backup.
I wondered if you might talk about Bob Lazar because you sent me that thing on TikTok the other day about Bob Lazar.
Oh, she just put it in.
Oh, there it is.
Bob Lazar. Bob
Well,
Lazar it is. I
all right.
love the story of Bob Lazar.
I don't know much about that either, so I'll be down that rabbit hole all week too.
I mean, that's a good one. He's one of the initial people, Holly, that was in on Area 51, and one of the
Oh, that's right.
initial, only like when it was, but literally the initial, when it was like 8 people involved in Project Area 51 and nobody knew anything. He was there, and then he was there through all the transformations and the alien that supposedly resides, that communicates with them, all that stuff. Like Bob Lazar was there for that, and
But
he's
is he the one though that later decided like totally changed his opinion on everything though? Or not?
no,
Maybe I'm thinking okay, I'm thinking of something else.
no,
Never
no, no,
mind.
no, no, no. He witnessed the real from the point where nobody understood it to the point where, I'll just put this out there as a little teaser to anybody watching. But as he was the one starting to go, wait a minute, I know we're all here and none of us know about this, but he started to, almost like what we were talking about, a little clairvoyance maybe. He was starting to understand the damage, or maybe what could be done. And so he started kind of assembling his notes of like, wait, because he was like the smartest one on campus, let me put it that way. So again, we were talking about uncharted territory. 6 8 guys being brought into this program, nobody knows anything, so they don't even know what program they're bringing them into. We just know there's an issue, And he's the guy who kind of forefronted that and led it, and then decided, wait a minute, we're doing a lot of wrong things. So he's definitely put himself into the line of fire as well, like many whistleblowers. But I would say that Lazar is, he'd be like the troubadour of whistleblowers. He was whistleblowing before it even had a name, and he's had to do it like in an underground way, and then stay, like, if he even, like, I think the last big project he did was being on Rogan. He was on the Rogan podcast about a year or two ago, for a 2.5 hour podcast. Pretty amazing too. Um, but he had to bring a guy with him. Like, he always, it's not like tough guy security detail, but he always travels with somebody so that he's got somebody there in case something were to happen. Like, if somebody tried to take him,
Oh wow.
like that,
What
it's
was
that
it?
kind of level.
What was it that he was whistleblowing on?
Area 51 and
Well,
all the
okay.
real.
So just the fact that it, I mean, because now, I mean, everybody knows it's real because the government's pretty much come out with it. But so this was just like way prior to all that, that he was coming out with it and they were trying to shut him up.
Yeah, like ADMF is in here saying, he said, I grew up listening to Art Bell, heard Bob a
Oh
long
wow.
time ago, still has the same story, and then he says at the bottom, anti-gravity. So, like, Lazar is somebody that, like, Stephen Greer definitely is, like, like, he's probably got a picture of Lazar on his wall. Like,
Actually, I've
this
heard
would
him
be,
mention it before.
yeah, I mean, he's definitely, like, he'd be like the OG gangster of understanding to the best of our abilities these technologies that are way beyond us. And at some point he discovered, so we won't give too much away this week, but at some point he discovered, oh, thank you guys, everybody's he's laughing out loud as ADMF. uh, So, but yeah, he is. I mean, what should I call him? The pimp of it? What? The OG? He's something. Uh, Still
Right.
safer than being a Boeing whistleblower. Yes,
That
sir.
is no lie.
Yeah. In fact, as a quick joke before we get out of here, I will say this, because I did see a video that was pretty hilarious. It was a girl traveling over New York City, same type of things we see a lot of. And she photographed what is one of those, like, elongated probe UFO spotting type things. But they were like, is it a drone? What the hell is this? The FAA couldn't help her, but, like, a lot of people commented the FAA never helps. They don't even respond. But she was on a flight filming it as going over New York City, and I'm not even going to get into the story. I'm just going to tell the joke of it, because the number one comment in this thread was, she's at the end. She's like, "Well, what is it? I don't know. Is it a UFO? I'm not even saying it is, people, but what is it?" And now to laugh about what ADMF had said, it's funny because the number one comment was, I bet it's a Boeing airplane door.
Yeah, that's funny. I did see that, but you know what? It's funny because since that Boeing stuff has come up, as you know, I'm going to Costa Rica next month, and
Mhm.
again in the fall. And since this has all happened, when I was looking at my flights, I am looking to see if it's a Boeing plane or not, because I don't really want to travel on one.
Aren't they all?
No, no, there's another company that makes planes as well. So there's two major ones out there.
I don't, but honestly, I'm not sure you're that much better in the other one either.
Well, I don't see anybody coming out like this.
Oh yeah, ADMF just said Airbus.
Yes, that's what it is.
Is that the other company?
Yes. Um,
So he also said May 6th, two astronauts are being
and a
sent to
Boeing.
space in a Boeing. Is that a joke?
No, but
I
I mean,
can't tell
it's
if you're
not a
kidding.
Boeing plane, obviously.
Well,
Boeing,
no.
you
Yeah,
know,
duh.
you know, yeah, they're gonna send them to space in an airplane.
I mean, it'd be a
The
great ad
Boeing
for Boeing.
Starliner.
Like, watch it blow up as it's hitting the edge of the atmosphere, and be like, "What'd you think was going to happen?" Like, Boeing, you know, or fly Boeing. But yeah, guys, as we walk out of here, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining. And ADMF and Mandy, I hope you guys follow. We love, we've had people in here, and I think that as we build this community, it'll be more fun and more fun and more fun. But we'll do Bob Lazar next week. And definitely, yeah, see you next Tuesday. Thank you. Yeah, we will be here. But I think that Lazar will be a good one. I think Holly, you're going to love that one too. So, and it's not scary. So it's getting away from, it's not some of the CERN stuff and stuff that we were talking about. So, well, I mean, I guess it is kind of worrisome, but it's not like that creepiness.
Anything that has to do with our government is worrisome.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and it is creepy too. I don't know what I'm saying, but at least Bob Lazar is a good guy, like he just kind of holds it together and describes it as best as, and he's a smart guy. So he just comes across as very point of fact. But
Okay,
with
well,
that said, guys, don't go jumping down any rabbit holes unless you want to have your brain melted, because in this space, because it like we were talking about earlier, like any topic you have, like any of the podcasts Holly and I have done, I feel like we could have 10 to 20 topics from that podcast, subtopics.
right. Oh, I know. There was
And
so much information on this. It was like so overwhelming because I could
well, that's why some of
really
these
talk about it like
intro
for 6
level are
hours
good.
because there's so
Right.
much.
Well, that's why the intro level ones are good. And with the Lazar, we might have to go overtime next week, because I'm going to try and really get a timeline together, and we'll try and do it in a timely fashion. But if it goes over, we've talked about having to have the live will be one piece, but potentially it could be 2 weeks worth.
Hey, and
Of,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, as we're leaving this remote viewing subject, I also want to leave you with this thought. This came from a guy who was a psychologist at Stanford as well. And he said they really do have a Soviet experiment in remote strangulation. Now you can kill people with your brain. Now that's crazy. But apparently they were talking about a time that they actually did it and it worked.
See, to
Not
me,
until the guy was dead, but
that means that they like slipped you a Mickey. Like,
I don't know. I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, can they really?
That was that movie that I mentioned, Third Eye Spies. That was, I think,
ADMF in the chat said Vader used to do that.
Yeah. But it just goes to show, one thing can lead to something else. And I mean, remote viewing now can lead to remote strangulation. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
So I guess we shouldn't teach the wrong people how to do this stuff.
No. And yeah, I mean, this is, again, sometimes we don't know all the answers, but we'll try and get there. Again, this is like a stepping stone. So if you guys do know, please, if you're listening on the replay even or whatever, and you do know a lot about remote viewing, leave links, leave anything that that you want to put out there. Because again, we can come back and revisit it. Won't be like in the next couple weeks, but we definitely would if you guys put the information in there and show us this was of interest to you, but you think we should hit on XYZ. We'll do that.
Or anything
we're here
you guys
with you,
want to talk about, let us know.
Yeah. But thank you guys for everything, and thank you for all the gifts. Again, Holly and I will have to look these up. I have no idea what they mean or what the value is. I remember them. Oh, and there's Mandy again with
we are new to Podbean, so
a clap rabbit hole. Mandy gave us 4 gifts tonight. So Mandy, thank you so much. Whether their value is a penny or $5, whatever. We appreciate you on huge levels, and ADMF and everybody who just joins. You guys don't need to do any of that, but of course we appreciate it. And we'll learn. I know that I remember it from Podbean that you can either cash those out or you can redispense them. We'll make sure to redispense them into the community too. So, I mean, until, obviously if it's at that level, and not just like wildly, but we'll go to other podcasts. And Mandy, if you have one, we'll check after the show and, we'll come by one of your lives. So,
if you guys have shows, let us know for sure.
Yeah.
We don't mind if you drop that in the chat. We're not like those people that say, oh, don't self-promote. I mean, obviously don't, spam our chat completely, totally like the whole hour. But yeah, if you have a show, be sure and tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys, and join us back here next week on the Rabbit Hole Vibrations podcast. Outro song coming soon.
You
Good
want me to
night.
sing? Good night, guys.
We can.